I just picked up a great controversial comic book that's been on my goals list for the last couple years. Stay tuned as I reveal that book, as what else I've been picking up recently. Welcome back, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and welcome back to one of my comic book haul videos. I've been amassing some great comic books over the last month or so. Even one of these is a great Christmas gift as well that I haven't shown on the channel yet. But the big book of the day is going to be a controversial comic book that has been on my goals list for the last couple years. And I was super psyched to get it, and I got it at a fantastic deal compared to what recent prices have gone for, what sales have gone for online. I was super excited to get this book, and I will reveal that at the very end of today's video. But before we begin, definitely hit that like, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any of the episodes that I put out each and every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3 p.m. Okay, guys, let's get right into this. Let's start off with the non-comic book items. They are comic related and are very much comic book centric, but they are not straight up comic books. And the first item is going to be the big Christmas gift my wife gave me for Christmas this year. We had tried to cut back and scale back our budgeting, and I actually found this online. And I told my wife about it, and it was a great deal. And I said, hey, this book usually goes for a lot more than this. This is a good time. Why don't you get this for me for Christmas? And that's what she did. This item is a fantastic book. I will never be able to get it signed because the feature artist in this has been gone from this world for a long time at this point, but is one of my favorite artists. And I can't wait to really get into this book. I've looked through it a little bit, but I've definitely going to spend some time delving into the pages of this book. It is another one of IDW's artist editions. My wife got me the John Buscema book here, Marvel Heroes artist edition. It is so big I can't even put it on the stand, but it is super big. It is super nice. You've got this beautiful Vision. What is this from? Issue 57 or 58? I think it's 58 actually. But you've got some great artwork in here. I love this book. Look at this. You've got the artwork from the Submariner number 8 there when he's taking on Ben Grimm. Beautiful artwork. Man, I can't even show this to you without really breaking this book open. But man, look at the artwork that you've got in here. Okay, I'm doing an awful job. I can't do that with the stand here. But guys, if you know these artist edition books, these things are fantastic. And I'll be honest, I picked this up to really look at the pages of John Buscema that he did with Tom Palmer, the Avenger pages. I was really curious more than anything to see what Avenger pages, especially the 1970s, the early 70s pages, what pages they were going in there. And if you guys follow the channel at all, you know I'm a big collector of John Buscema artwork. I've got a lot of pages from his work with Tom Palmer on the Avengers. I've got a handful from the early 70s, as well as a bunch of them from the middle 80s as well. And I was curious to see if any of the artwork that I had was actually featured in here. I'm not really sure what the process is when they go to do these books, but I don't think any of my pages are in there, but there are definitely some of those pages that are very close to some of the ones I have. To be curious, I don't know if they have to reach out to fans to find this artwork. I mean, no one knows what pages I have unless they watch this channel and they can see a few of them on the channel from occasion. But that would have been curious, but I was definitely interested in looking at that artwork, as well as anything else he's been doing. It covers a big range of years right here, so I'll enjoy sitting through that and looking at all the beautiful John Buscema artwork. All right, so we go from one end, the oldest thing that is in this comic book haul video, to one of the newest things that I just got in the mail, and it had literally just come out last week as of filming of this video on New Comic Book Day. And I could have picked it up on New Comic Book Day. It was right there at Third Eye Comics on the stand. Plenty of places were selling this. It was a brand new book, hardbound, that had just come out, and it was a $100 price tag. And I could have gotten maybe a 10% discount at my LCS, but I did a quick search online when I discovered that they had put this book out. I wasn't really even sure when it was supposed to come out, to be honest with you. And I ended up finding from an online source that I honestly, at this moment, I can't even remember. I just did a search on Google and I found a store that had it. They were selling it for about $75 and free shipping. So I went ahead and bought that from this online source. And let me show it to you right here. This is a book that will go with me to the next con that I go to. I have got to get this signed. And honestly, I had just broken this open. I haven't even looked inside yet. So let's show you the book. I picked up the new or old DC Comics Style Guide. It is a hardbound edition that is a, let me see if I can set it here. I don't know if it'll even fit on my stand here. All right. So this right here is a reproduction of the original DC Style Guide from 1982. It features the art of Luis Garcia Lopez Garcia. Did I get that right? Man, I tell you, his name is, you got 4 names there. It's Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Did I butcher that? I'm not even sure. But what you've got in this is a style guide that came out in 1982 and something that was not even on my radar until this last year in 2024 when DC Comics were featuring Jose on a lot of different covers, big covers, Shazam, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern. I think there might have been something else. I can't remember right now. And it was the style guide covers of these characters. And I'm going, what is this? Where did this come from? In fact, I got a handful of these books signed this last year at Baltimore at the Baltimore Comic Con. And he had signed a bunch of these. And I talked with him for a few minutes. And it turns out, again, not on my radar, I never knew about this, that he had produced all the artwork to this style guide back in 1982. And that made me, wow, this is really interesting. And I actually found somebody online who was selling the original style guide. And at the time, the bidding was pretty decent. But at the very end, man, it shot up. I think it went for over $500. And I'm going, I would have loved to have had that. It was I believe it was a 3-ring binder. Each page was featuring a different character. I didn't know, I hadn't seen many more pages outside of that. But then it got announced that they were doing this hardbound book, and it was reproduced from an original source, production source. So I haven't even looked at this. I've looked at the cover, and the artwork looks fantastic. And I'm just going to open it up to my first page, and you see there is a Wonder Woman page right there. And as a graphic designer, I have done my fair share of style guides for fairly big companies, mostly hardware type companies, packaging, advertising, things like that. And I know what it takes to do a style guide. And it'll be interesting for me to go through this and see if it really is a style guide that talks about certain specifications that a character has to have. I'll be honest with you, I'm seeing a lot of just wonderful illustrations at the moment. I don't see what your typical style guide does, which is give you the exactness that if anybody produces something, then it will fall within the style or the brand standards. What I see here is more of a guide to what a character looks like. It's almost like one of those photographic guides that artists would use, that you could see a character, or they would have a photograph of a person running in multiple different positions, and it would be a guide to be able to do your drawing based on that photographic reference. This seems more like a photographic or an illustrated reference more than anything. But this is going to be cool to go through, and as I said, I see a lot, man, there's characters I've never even heard of in here. But man, there is a lot of stuff in here to go through. All by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I cannot wait to take this to get signed and have him look through this. I'm sure he's going to be signing a lot of these at the next convention that he's at. But that was right there, 2 of the hardbound books that I picked up. One being from Christmas, the other one just recently, this last week, I just got it in the mail. But I still have a lot of great comic books that I've been picking up recently. And one of my biggest sources of comics, high grade, that I have been so happy with over the last year has been Infinity Comics auctions on hipcomic.com. And I've taken a lot of hits from fans out there, friends and fans alike, that have lamented me talking about Infinity Comics. They don't want me talking about it because why would you get more people to go there? You're just having more competition for yourself. And I guess that's true in one sense. On the other sense, I do have a channel and I love talking about these things and love talking about the sources of my comics and the great places where you can go and find things. And Hip Comic, where really Infinity Comics on hipcomic.com has been a wonderful place for me to find great books. I have made some amazing purchases, amazing bid wins, and gotten some fantastic results out of it. Better results than even finding those similar books at a convention where I can actually look at them. I've talked about how their photos aren't the best. If you blow them up, you can barely see if there's a tick. Well, you can see maybe there's a tick, but you can't see the severity of some of the damage sometimes. They're not as high quality as a Heritage Auctions photo, for example, but I've overcome that. I've had a great confidence. Oh, and there goes my notes, by the way. I've had a great confidence in these books that I've been picking up. I'd say 85% of the books have come in as good of condition as I was expecting or I was hoping. And it's just been fantastic, some of the things I've gotten. I've gotten Marvel Premiere 15 that I've got a 9.6 on. Amazing Spider-Man 252, the same deal. I got a 9.6 newsstand on that. I've gotten Spider-Man 252s, multiple ones of that, where some of the most beautiful copies, 9.8s. I've been picking these things up and I've had great success. There have been some misses along the way, but in general, some of these big keys that I have put some decent money into have paid off majorly on some of these. And some of the ones I've kept and some of the ones I've sold and helped pay for this hobby. It has been fantastic source. Well, that is what I've got here is some of my last wins from Infinity Comics. Now, this hasn't been recent. These have been the ones that have kind of accumulated a little bit. But I wanted to go ahead and do this video because what I've noticed at Infinity Comics, especially Infinity Comics, is something changed over the last month or so. And what I was noticing is that the images, there were only one image now, not an image of the front and back on a lot of their auction listings. And you will also notice a subtle change in their titling of the comics. They no longer put the grade that they thought it was. You would see a book listed and then you would see in parentheses near mint minus, very fine. You would see the grade, estimated grade there as well. And that was the first thing I noticed. But then when I went to a book that I was interested in to check out the photos, there was only a front image. And I'm going, okay, this is different. And it doesn't allow you to look at the back of the image. And I'm going, well, I'm not going to bid on a book. I'm not going to take that risk knowing that you can get plenty of books that look fantastic on the front, but you turn it over and all of a sudden you've got these awful spine ticks on the back. I wasn't going to risk that. But I could still find plenty of listings in there that were still had both images. And over the course of the last month or so, it's gone from a few of these listings were like this to now the majority of them are like this. And I think this may be the end of me bidding on comics from Infinity Comics. It may not necessarily be the end of my time of buying on hipcomic.com, and we'll address that also at the end of today's video. But for the auctions, it may be the end of what I'm picking up from Infinity Comics. I will still periodically go back and take a look, but for the most part, majority of the books don't have that second image, and I'm just not willing to put any money on a book necessarily that doesn't have that back image, so I don't get a full 100% transparency view of that comic book. Well, a lot of these wins that I'm going to show you right here were over the last couple months. I've cut down on my comic book haul videos like this, kind of amassing, letting them build up a little bit so I could do a show and tell. So I don't have an exact, it's not like, oh my God, the last one I had, these just came in a week ago and this is what I'm showing. It's kind of amassed. So I didn't really notice the change on Infinity Comics all at once. It just kind of built up over time to the point where, wow, I'm not bidding on anything. But let's just get into it, and I will show you what were some of the best books at the very end of my time with Infinity Comics auctions were. So let's just get into the books, and I'll show you some of the great books that I've been picking up. And I wish that they were still having the same types of auctions, but alas, that's the way it's going to be. But I still picked up some really good books. All right, let's start with some of the books. These are books I've already got, but I continue to buy some of these keys, hoping to find some really high grade ones, because there in this line of books, there are definitely some ones that I would love to get graded at some point. But that wasn't the initial goal when I started this run on this one line of comic books, trying to complete the run. It wasn't the goal. It was just to have a high grade. Now I'm into the point where I'm going to be looking for super high grade, gradable copies of some of the keys. And let's just start with the run that I'm talking about, of course, for me is the Invaders. And the Invaders have a handful of keys in that 41 issue run, including, then there's the king size annual and the giant size Invaders as well. And this is one of the fairly big keys in this. This is the first appearance of Baron Blood and the first appearance of Union Jack. Now, this came out in July of 1976, still considered a modern. And what I'm going to give you are fair market values on some of this. On these books, to be honest with you, this wasn't a primary goal to get them graded. It was really to find just high grade. But I will continue looking for better and better copies, especially of some of the keys. But I did want to talk about what the potential is for some of these. So I didn't go into depth on looking at what the most recent sold of a certain grade was, but I did want to show some of the potential and what I would be shooting for. So I'm going to just give you what is fair market value at this point, not what a recent sale is like I normally do, at least on these Invaders books. Well, I just gave away, I've got more Invaders books. So number 7 here, first Baron Blood, first Union Jack, 9.8's fair market values, about $720. 9.6's go down to $165, which still falls in that range of what I was talking about, getting books graded that go above that $150 minimum to get something graded. Now, it may still have to be a pre-screen at least a 9.6. I don't want it to fall below that, because you go down to 9.4 on this, even a key like this, 9.4 will fall down to $64 fair market value. All right, next up was the next issue here of number 8. I guess technically the first cover appearance of Union Jack. Beautiful Jack Kirby cover right here. This was in June, and I'm looking at my notes. So if I look away, that's what I'm looking at as my notes. June of 1977. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong date. September of 1976. You can tell that these weren't monthly necessarily at the time. 9.8, $450. 9.6, $120. That's a little bit more risky. And then a 9.4 goes all the way down to $60. Again, probably a minimum 9.6 pre-screen on something like this. Beautiful book. I love this. It's one of my favorite covers. It's very much like the next book, which is actually my favorite book in the entire Invaders run, and it's number 17. And it's actually the book that I always sought after this book. I never had it as a kid. I had some of the other Invaders books growing up. I never had this one, but I always wanted this cover. And it's not like it's super sexy or anything, but it is very female dominant, and it really shows the force of a female right here. You've got number 17, the first appearance of Warrior Woman. At least that's what it said on Go Collect. I thought the character actually showed up at the end of 16, but love this mostly for this beautiful cover. I think it's Gil Kane who did this, but I always loved this cover, and this is the book that really got me started on getting the Invaders run going. When I found this book, along with a handful of others at really good prices at the 4th State Comic-Con in Hagerstown, Maryland 2 years ago, this is what got me started on buying this entire line, because I bought those things at super cheap. They were fantastic grades. Not the most perfect, but for the price, for only a few bucks, you're picking up super high grade books of some of these invaders. And this was the one book that was a key, but it was one that I always kind of keep an eye out on. This came out, as I was getting ready to say a minute ago, this was June of 1977. 9.8s, $240, 9.6s, $150, 9.4s go down to $90. That's actually really good for that 9.4 compared to the other two. So this is a book I will continue picking up. I may want to get this graded someday. This is the only one that I would really want to keep in the PC graded. But you guys will have to let me know what you think about this cover, about any of these books, to be honest with you. Obviously, I'm going to say at the end of the video, leave me a comment in the comment section below, but at any point you can comment on any of the things in the video. All right, so the last book is actually one of the last ones that I finally added to the PC for this 41-issue run. And I'll be honest, this copy right here is not quite as good as I was like, and this is one I will definitely 100% look for upgrading at some point, but it is one of the most expensive ones. You go out there and to add as a raw, it definitely, people ask for a premium if it's in super high grade. It is issue number 20, and it is the second appearance of Union Jack. I'm sorry, first appearance of Union Jack 2. I want to say, is it also the first appearance of Spitfire? I'm not sure about that, but this one can be super expensive out there in the wild at shows as a high grade raw, and I've never been willing to overspend on this. 9.8s, if you can find it out there, $350. 9.6 is $130. 9.4 is $100. This one's got some good value. This is one that I obviously would look for a high grade to maybe get graded, but I would not necessarily want to keep this in the PC. But great books nonetheless, and I picked these up at, we're talking anywhere from $8 to maybe $15 on these. I think I paid a little bit more, probably closer to $20 for this one. This one's the one that always ends up being a little bit more expensive no matter what, even more expensive than the Bear and Blood one. All right, so this was all during 1 week of Infinity Comics auctions. But I had another week where I had a few other good books, as well as a really big key in this particular week. And I'm kind of breaking these down into the different weeks that I've won over the last couple months. And that's what I would do, is I'd win on one day and I might come back the next day, and then I'd wait till the end of the week before I finally pay that invoice for that particular week, is the way I've been doing it on Infinity Comics. And so this week, I ended up picking up a really nice copy of Watchmen 3. I always look for high grades of these. These are not expensive. But the back cover photo, and this is why this is key on this site, is being able to see the back cover on especially books like The Watchmen that I've talked about, that it's very difficult to have a completely perfect back cover on any of these Watchmen. They have a solid color, whether it's black and red, or red for the most part. And for some reason, this paper will pick up the oils in your hand very quickly. So it is the only book, the only line of books, this 12 issues, that when I work on in the shop, when I clean and press it, I actually wear gloves on this. Normally, I wash my hands a lot. I don't like to have gloves on when I'm doing my cleaning and pressing. But this book, I definitely put that on there because I've never seen the oils pick up as quickly as I have as one of these Watchmen books. So for only a few bucks, I picked up issue number 3. It's got a good value at a 9.8, $140 fair market value right now. In fact, well, fair market, it actually went for that. That was one of the most recent sales. 9.6s, though, dropped down to $55. They have really fallen off in this last year as a 9.6. Except for issue 1, you want to get this entire line as 9.8s. So that's my advice on any of the Watchmen if you decide to get them graded. All right, next up was something that wasn't really on my radar until I was on this auction, and they had a whole line of these magazines. But the two of the bigger key issues actually went for a lot more money than I was willing to spend at that point. which I think was issue 1, and there's one of the later issues as well. But I did pick up issue number 2 at a really decent price, and I kind of did it as a novelty just to have something from this line. I'd never bought any of these books before. I was curious to see the original source material from one of my favorite comic books from Eclipse in the mid-'80s. It was this here, Warrior Magazine number 2. And you've got basically the second appearance of Marvel Man, who, of course, in Eclipse Comics in 1985 was turned into Miracle Man. It was the same story, they just changed the name. And this right here, of course, you've got this beautiful, there's Alan Davis artwork right there, but you've got this, of course, the original Alan Moore story, and you've got, of course, some Alan Moore other work. You've got V for Vendetta in there. I'm not sure which story was that. I don't think that was the very first one. But this is a really good magazine, and I kind of was curious. The conditions in pretty decent shape. It's not the best, but it's actually in pretty decent shape. And I went to look up what a fair market value on something like this be, what some recent sales were, and I couldn't find hardly anything except for an 8.0 that had gone for, let me see, I've got notes all over the place. I got to find it. I have no idea. Where did I write this? There it is. $104 for an 8.0 that just went this last year. And that was it. I couldn't find anything else. I can't find 9.8s, 9.6s, anything. So I have no idea what the fair market value on something like this graded higher than an 8.0 would be. But it's kind of curious. But I honestly bought this as a novelty just to have it in the PC. All right, so in this particular week, and the only reason that I've only got 3 books in this particular week's auction wins is because I put all the money towards this book right here. And yet again, and I mentioned it in the preamble earlier today, I picked up another fantastic copy of Amazing Spider-Man 252. And a lot of times when I spend a lot of money, I don't like to talk about what I exactly spend. My wife watches this. I don't need her knowing exactly what I spend on these comic books. But I will say that I spent on this book exactly kind of what I spent on the previous copies that I had bought off of hipcomic.com, Infinity Comics auctions. And this one may be one of the best. I have high hopes. This is a 9.8 candidate all the way. And if you guys are familiar with the book, you know if you turn it on the back side, the ad on the back side, about 3/4 of the back side is a very black image. So you can pick up those spine ticks really good. And that's where that second photo on Infinity Comics auctions come in handy is look at the second photo. As I said, it's not the best photo, but you can turn it over and you can see if there's any color breaking spine ticks. You may not be able to pick up a non-color breaking one, but the color ones you can generally pick up and say, there's something there. I may pass on that. Well, this one looks super clean, and I looked at it, and it really looks super clean. I can't wait to get this into the shop. These are one of these books. This is the kind of book that, honestly, this is all I should be buying. This is a book that I can put, I will say this, I paid less than $200 for this. But let's say $200, even a little bit more. And this is a book as a 9.8 candidate can go for roughly right now anywhere from $950 to maybe about $1,100, depending if maybe you get the custom labels or something like that. And honestly, I sold my last 2 copies and I made some really good money, and that helped pay for a lot of my CGC grading, things like that. And that's the potential on a book like this. This is honestly, if I was doing this for a living, I think that's all I would buy. I would buy this book and just keep turning and turning. But fantastic book. Great condition. This is why I loved Infinity Comics. And I'm a little sad that I may not be able to have that opportunity at this point. I think the honey hole is running dry, and I may end up having to go someplace else. But again, what did I say? We're going to talk a little bit more about hipcomic.com coming up here. All right, so I had one final really good auction at Infinity Comics. And same deal as before, got to see both photos. I knew what the conditions kind of were. Even when they say it's a very fine, and I don't see any non-pressable defects, it tells me I've got potential that I could possibly press this out and have a 9.8 candidate. And that's what I've got with these right here. I finally went back to the well and I picked up some brand new John Byrne X-Men, I shouldn't say brand new, but brand new copies to me, copies of X-Men 135, what I consider the first full appearance of the Dark Phoenix. I've talked about this before. Her first appearance was on the final panel of the issue prior, 134. They consider that the first appearance of Dark Phoenix. But if you use the Hulk 180, 181 model, then this truly is the first appearance of the Dark Phoenix. You have full story and full cover of her. It is also a fantastic cover. It's a homage to that beautiful Neil Adams cover. I think it's issue 55. I can't remember exactly. Maybe I may be wrong on that. But the issue where the original X-Men are taking on the living Pharaoh. Boy, I cannot speak today. This right here, fantastic book. It's one of my favorite X-Men covers by John Byrne. And love this story, as everybody does, the saga of the Dark Phoenix. And this right here is a fantastic copy. And I've been amassing a lot of X-Men books, and I want to talk about that a little bit. But let me give you some prices, and I'll tell you kind of what I'm going to be starting to do. And you can probably pick it up of what the prices are and how I'm going to give them to you here. X-Men 135 here. Again, I'm trying to find my notes. I've got so many notes today. You've got 9.8s right now, $348. 9.6s go down shockingly. Somebody picked up one for $129. That's crazy. They got a great deal on an auction bid on eBay. Generally, and I've been picking them up for just south of $200. I picked up one that was well under that, and I resold it for probably $35 to $50 higher than what it was. And seeing that 129 scares me a little bit. But again, that was an auction win. But generally $189 to $200. And if you're lucky, you can do a little bit better than that. But getting them signed by Chris Claremont, 9.8s, $348. 9.6s do a lot better at $300. Actually, I'm looking at my notes. What did I say? Let me refine that. 9.8, $759 signed by Claremont, and then again $300 for the 9.6. So that right there is one of those things where I'm starting to consider, and this is what I want to talk about with Claremont and getting these X-Men books signed. I may not just have these raw books from the X-Men. I may not just send them in to CGC at this point just to get them graded. I may start amassing these books that I would normally just send in to CGC. I may take them with me to the next time I see Chris Claremont at a show. I know he's going to be at Heroes Con. I know he's scheduled to be in Baltimore in October. That may be a new model for me right now, is to take these X-Men books and instead of just getting them graded, but get them graded and signed and really this is why I always talk about adding value to your comics. Well, so I picked this one up doing that, and this one right here is another one that's super hard to get that 9.8 because of the square bound. It is the last issue in the Dark Phoenix saga, 137. And I've got a 9.6 in my run of John Byrne X-Men. That goal of getting every one of the books from 108 to 143, all is 9.6 or better. This right here, I just bought a 9.8. I never tried to get it graded myself. I didn't have good copies of this, but this is a fantastic copy. 9.8 potential. Let me give you some breakdowns on this. 9.8, $360. 9.6, $170. You know, it's one of those. If I needed it right now, I could probably pick up a pretty good deal on a 9.6. But signed 137s, $808. Claremont signed, and you'll find other books that are signed by other people. You'll find ones that are signed with Stan Lee. Sometimes you'll find things that John Byrne had signed previously, things like that. But these are strictly Claremont only signed books. 9.6 though drops down. It was about 100. Actually, I'm looking at my notes here. What does that say? I think it was like $107. No, that's not right. $187. Yeah, I think that's what my notes say. I scribbled that. So that one maybe be an aberration, but I think this right here, again, like all the other John Byrne, X-Men, getting Claremont to sign these really does add value to your books. But those are really good. But I picked up one other book. I didn't spend a lot on either of these, to be honest with you. Probably a little bit less than I would spend if I went to a show. But the money this week on this, what is probably one of my last Infinity Comics auctions like this, was Another Big Key. And I'd already picked this book up before and gotten a beautiful 9.6 on this copy. I didn't think I would get a 9.6. It had a fairly severe tick that I minimized when I cleaned and pressed it, but somehow I got that 9.6. It was a book that I sold. I didn't necessarily want it in my PC. Again, selling to help pay for a lot of what I do in the hobby. But I picked up another copy of DC Comics Presents number 26, the first appearance of the new Teen Titans. You've got first appearances by Raven, you've got Starfire, and you've got Cyborg all in this. And beautiful book. I never had it as a kid. Until I bought my previous copy, I'd never even read the story. So I had no idea what the Teen Titans were at this point. All I know is that I started with issue 1 and went through that entire Marv Wolfman, George Perez run, having every one of those issues. I had all of those, but I never had this. And when I sold the last one, it was, I think it was a little bit of a gift grade, but I'm going, okay, this is fantastic. And using the same model of buying books off Infinity Comics auctions, I picked up another copy. I paid about the same as I did the last one. This copy, I think, is even better than the first one. And I think this one actually is a 9.8 candidate. So this right here, 9.8's recent sales, $959. 9.6's do drop down to $317. I'll tell you, that is what this book sold for. It was in that range, around over $300 when I sold it. And I actually made basically doubled what I paid for that book. So I did really good on that, and I hope in this case that the 9. Comes out as a 9.8 book. Again, I don't need this in my PC, but a book like this helps me pay for the hobby. I say that a lot, like I'm trying to justify things. All right, guys. So we're down to 2 more books, and what did I say earlier was I'm not going to probably be buying a lot more on the Infinity Comics auctions off of hipcomic.com. But there's a lot more to hipcomic.com than just Infinity auctions. There are other sellers on there, and they don't necessarily have to be auctions. Sometimes they're just selling like they're a store. And this is one of the ones that I bought from. It was a listing, and honestly, I think I overpaid by his condition on there, but I found it and I'm going, okay, I kind of like this. This is not a key, and I don't think it's even a gradable comic book based on a little bit of the damage on here. I will have to, but they did have both photos, and even with that, I still missed kind of a dog ear that I couldn't see in the photo. But again, I didn't spend a lot, but I did pick up another Dale comic from Dale. It's another Donald Duck copy here. This is issue number 74. Again, not a key, but you've got more beautiful Carl Barks artwork. I love collecting these. I don't necessarily get a lot of these graded. In fact, I've only gotten one book like this graded, and it's sitting literally right here. I've had it sitting back here. I had just gotten this back from Baltimore. This is my Donald. This is it's not Donald Duck. It's actually 4-color 189. It is the second appearance of Scrooge McDuck, one of my favorite books right here, right recently. This is one of my top 10. I love this book. It's not expensive. It's a little expensive, but it's not super expensive. And this book, I love this book. So, but I continue buying Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge type books. I love Carl Barks. And some of these books, this is not a key, as I said, so it's not a gradable candidate, but I do have a little bit of information, some recent sales. People have sold 9.4 for $240 and 9.0 for $74, but that was back in 2017. It's not a book that you're going to see graded that often, and honestly, I'm not getting this graded, but I may take it to press it out and try to make it more presentable. But guys, we're down to it. What did I tease at the very beginning right here? I said, I'm going to the big book of the day for me was picking up a book that had a controversial cover. It's been on my goals list ever since it came into my radar a couple of years ago, and it's not cheap. But what I paid for it is a lot less than what recent sales have gone for. And I was super stoked when I saw this. Now, honestly, I bought this around Christmas. I got it into the new year when it came in. And I was super psyched because there were a lot of great sales going on. And here we go back to hipcomic.com, but not Infinity Auctions. And I found a seller on there when I just did a general search looking for different books. And this seller had massive discounts. And as I said, I paid a lot less. And I'll get into that just a little bit when I show you the book here. But it has a great controversial cover. And I think this grade is actually really good. In fact, honestly, I would like the grade a little bit better. But for the grade and for the price, this is very presentable. It is a beautiful cover here. It's got a little bit of writing here and there. You've got some foxing. And honestly, the back of the cover could use a good cleaning, dry cleaning. Definitely some foxing on there. And that's not my forte when I clean and press. So I try to stay away from having to do that kind of stuff. But for this grade, this is fantastic. Let me show it to you. I finally picked up Betty and Me, number 16, the famous beat-off cover as Archie beats off three guys to save Betty. I've wanted this ever since I've seen it. I came close a couple years ago at the Baltimore Comic-Con picking up a copy, but honestly, for that raw copy, which may or may not have been just a little bit better than this, I would have paid more for that than I did for this. And I'm kind of glad I passed that at the time. When I ran across this seller, I believe, and did I write it down? I think it's Collector Expo. Collectors Expo is a seller on there, and he had a lot of different comics at really good discounts. And there were some other things on there that didn't really interest me, but I found this, and I'm going, wow, that I think is a really good price. I saw it. I saw what he was offering, and I did a quick lookup of what recent sales on eBay had gone for. In fact, those are the most recent sales. And we're not talking a year ago. We're talking in the last month. Recent sales of this have gone for $550 to $576. And you know that there were taxes, there was shipping on top of that. Well, I will tell you this. I paid basically anywhere from $150 to $200 less for this without paying taxes, any additional taxes, and shipping was free. And I think it was a fantastic deal. This is a book that if I can upgrade it, I will, and I will use this as a bargaining chip to throw into if I want to get a bigger book. Maybe I package it, but try to get a better grade at some point. But I don't know if I can find a better deal on this at this point. Right now, I am super happy. This book's definitely going up on one of the displays around the house. I'm keeping this one out, despite what my wife may say. But guys, that is it. This has been a massive haul, and I appreciate you guys letting me ramble all day. I'm looking at the time, how long I've been talking. It's been a long day. I hope you enjoy all of this today. Definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about all the comic books I picked up during this big, massive, basically 2-month-long comic book haul at this point. I've had a lot of fun. These are, honestly, I was looking at these books, and these are some of the fun books. These are a fun haul today for me. I love just about everything I picked up here. Actually, just about everything I picked up here, I love. So definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And as I said before, hit that like, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell if you enjoyed this kind of content. Again, I went long today, and I hope you guys made it to the very end here. I appreciate the support, and I will see you for the next show. Just remember, guys, every comic has a story.